It was supposed to be a chill Friday night. I had one thing on my mind: pizza. After a long, exhausting week, I finally made it to my favorite local pizza spot, the kind of place where the smell hits you before you even walk through the door. I placed my usual order, paid, and stood off to the side, watching the staff work their magic. The place was packed: families, couples, loud groups of teens. It was chaos, but the good kind. As I stood there, scrolling on my phone, I noticed someone pacing near the counter. A woman, maybe in her late 40s, with that unmistakable Karen energy: short, angled haircut, sunglasses perched on her head even though it was nighttime, and a purse clutched like a weapon. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was just waiting too. But then she started staring at me. Or more specifically, at my pizza ticket in my hand. I didn't think much of it until she suddenly stepped forward. I looked up just in time to see her lean over the counter and speak to the staff. She pointed at one of the fresh pizzas being boxed up. My pizza. I could hear her saying something about how it was hers, and that she had been waiting forever. The guy behind the counter looked confused, checking the receipt on the box. I wasn't about to jump in yet. I thought maybe it was just a mix-up. But then she turned her head, looked right at me, and said loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear, "That's my pizza. I was here before him." Every head turned, including mine. The cashier looked at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, this pizza is for the person holding ticket number 42, he said. I raised my hand. Yep, that was me. She didn't back down. "No, I'm 42, she snapped, holding up a crumpled ticket. "With the number 39. The cashier politely tried to correct her, but she wasn't having it. She started getting loud, demanding her pizza, and insisting the boy behind the counter didn't know what he was doing. That's when I stepped closer and calmly said, "Ma'am, I think that's actually my order." Her eyes narrowed, and then she said something that made me freeze. "No, that's my pizza now. You can order another one." Wait, what? Everyone around us was dead silent, and I swear even the oven stopped making noise. The cashier tried to calm her down, but she grabbed the box and started pulling it toward her. That was the exact moment I realized. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a full-blown pizza heist, and Karen was just getting started. The moment she clutched that pizza box like it was a prize she earned in battle, I knew things were about to spiral. But nothing could have prepared me for the chaos that followed. She had just declared out loud in a room full of people that my pizza was now hers. There was a strange kind of silence hanging in the air, half disbelief, half anticipation. Everyone was watching, forks midair, drinks half sipped, conversations frozen. The cashier, poor guy, looked like he'd rather disappear into the oven than deal with this mess. "Ma'am, you're holding ticket 39, he tried again, holding up the correct box behind the counter. "This one is 42. But Karen wouldn't budge. She had that smug, entitled look on her face, the one that says rules don't apply to me. And then she doubled down. "I've been waiting longer," she snapped, gripping the box tighter like someone might try to wrestle it away. "And I have kids waiting at home, hungry kids." Her voice rose with every word. I didn't say anything at first. I was genuinely stunned. What kind of person just takes someone else's food like that? Especially in a place where everything is numbered, timed, and tracked. But Karen wasn't concerned with logic or receipts or decency. She was running on pure, entitled adrenaline. "I'm not leaving without this pizza," she said, loud enough for even the kitchen staff to hear. I stepped a little closer, trying to keep calm, and asked, "Ma'am, why are you taking my food? You didn't pay for it. That's not your order." Her eyes flashed, and in the most sarcastic voice imaginable, she replied, "Oh really? Are you the pizza police now?" She turned back to the cashier and added, "I don't feel safe with him hovering like that. He's being aggressive." Aggressive? I had barely spoken. Now the tone had shifted. The customers who had been enjoying the drama started looking a little uneasy. Some even pulled out their phones, probably thinking this was about to turn into a full-blown viral video moment. The cashier hesitated, caught between following company rules and trying to de-escalate a situation that had gone from ridiculous to hostile in under 2 minutes. He tried to slide the box gently out of her grip, but Karen yanked it back and said, "If you touch me, I will call the police. You hear me?" And now, just like that, she had flipped the script. She was acting like she was the victim. I could see the shift in the room. Some people started whispering. One lady 2 tables away mouthed, "Oh my God," to her friend. The tension was thick enough to slice through, just like the pizza she hadn't paid for. The cashier looked at me, desperate for backup, and I stepped forward again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I just said, "Look, you know that's not your food. Why don't you just take your actual order and let me have mine?" Karen scoffed. "I don't want that one anymore. It's cold now. And besides, this one has extra cheese. I deserve it after how long I've waited." That was her logic. She deserved it. Not because she paid more or ordered it, but because she felt entitled to it. Like she'd been through a long, exhausting battle just sitting there, scrolling her phone while the rest of us waited patiently. And now, she was ready to be rewarded. She spun around dramatically and walked straight toward the exit, pizza box in hand, as if she'd just completed a heroic mission. But she didn't get far. As soon as she hit the doorway, the manager, who'd been watching everything unfold from a distance, stepped in. He was a big guy, probably in his 50s, and you could tell he'd dealt with more than a few unruly customers in his time. He held up a hand and said, "Ma'am, I need you to stop." Karen, mid-stride, turned around like he'd just insulted her ancestors. "Excuse me?" she snapped. "I'm taking what's mine. Are you seriously going to harass a woman right now?" The manager didn't flinch. "That's not your pizza. You're trying to leave with someone else's order. That's theft." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Theft. Karen laughed nervously, like this was all just a misunderstanding. "You people are unbelievable," she muttered. "I come here all the time. I spend so much money here, and this is how I get treated?" The manager kept his voice level. "We appreciate your business, but that pizza belongs to him. I saw everything. If you leave with it, I'll have to call the police." Karen stared at him like she couldn't believe he'd actually said it. Like she'd expected everyone to just roll over and let her do whatever she wanted. Slowly, she looked around. All those eyes still on her. All those phones still recording. And she cracked. "Fine," she shouted, tossing the box onto the nearest table. "You can all have your stupid pizza. I hope it gives you food poisoning." The box hit the edge, slid off, and landed on the floor. Splat. Cheese down, sauce everywhere. Everyone gasped. It was like time paused. I looked down at my ruined dinner and then back at Karen, who was now storming out like she was the one who'd been wronged. The manager muttered a curse under his breath and bent down to pick up the box, motioning to a worker for a cleanup. "I'm so sorry," he said to me. "Let me get you a new one, on the house." I nodded, still trying to process what had just happened. Karen had walked out into the night, fuming like a villain in the final act of a soap opera. But somehow, I knew she wasn't done. People like that never are, and I was right. Because 10 minutes later, just as I was sitting down with my fresh replacement pizza, guess who came back? Just when I thought the madness had peaked and I could finally enjoy my freshly made replacement pizza, she came back. Yup, Karen, marching through the front door like she owned the place, sunglasses now off and dangling from her shirt, eyes blazing with indignation. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her was a man, mid-50s, gray mustache, cheap polo shirt tucked way too tightly into his khakis. Her husband, I guessed. And from the second he stepped in, I could tell he was just as entitled as she was, maybe even worse. They made a beeline straight for the counter like they were about to sue the entire pizza shop for emotional distress. She pointed directly at me. "That's him," she announced to the manager, her voice slicing through the buzz of conversation like a knife. "He's the one who harassed me and made a scene. We need to talk. Now." The husband folded his arms like he was some kind of backup muscle. I hadn't even touched the pizza yet. I was still cooling down, scrolling on my phone, trying to decompress. And suddenly, I was back in the spotlight again. The manager looked exhausted already. He stepped forward slowly, his voice calm. "Ma'am, we've already talked. The situation was handled. You took someone else's pizza, and now he has a fresh one. Everything's settled." But Karen wasn't backing down. "No, it's not settled," she snapped. "He intimidated me. I felt threatened. And then your employee touched me. That's assault." I actually laughed. Not loud, but enough for her to hear. Because seriously, Assault? Over a pizza? She turned to me and said, "You think this is funny? You ruined my night. My kids are hungry. We had plans. And all because you couldn't wait 5 more minutes for your turn." I blinked at her, stunned. "You tried to steal my food," I said slowly, "and then dropped it on the floor when you didn't get your way. How is that my fault?" Her husband took a step forward, trying to loom over me. "Watch your mouth," he said quietly. "You're lucky we don't press charges." Now everyone in the place was watching again. Same audience, new drama. The teens at the corner booth had started recording, whispering commentary like it was a live show. I stayed seated, not rising to the bait, but Karen wasn't done. "I want that pizza," she said, pointing at the fresh box in front of me like it was her lost treasure. "That was supposed to be mine. You just made it for him because you felt sorry for him." She looked at the manager like he was her personal waiter. "Make me a new one, right now. Extra cheese, pepperoni, garlic crust." The manager gave her a look that screamed, "I'm 2 seconds from walking out of this job." But he didn't argue. He simply said, "You'll have to pay for it." Karen scoffed. "Pay? After how I was treated? You should be giving me that pizza for free." And then she reached out and tried to take mine. Again. No joke. Her hand was halfway across the table, fingers gripping the lid of the box like it belonged to her. Reflexively, I placed my hand on top of it and pulled it back just an inch, not aggressively, just to protect it. She tugged again. "Let go," she hissed, like we were fighting over a winning lottery ticket. Her husband moved closer. "Don't touch my wife," he warned. And that's when the real tug-of-war began. Karen had one hand on the box, I had the other, and for a few seconds, we were both holding it like it was a football in overtime. The lid popped open slightly, and I saw the cheese shift inside. I wasn't going to let it fall again, not after everything. I leaned back, still gripping the edge of the box, and said, "Let. Gishu." Karen's face turned red with fury. "You have no right to eat that. That should have been mine from the start." Her grip tightened. I pulled harder. Then, in the middle of this ridiculous standoff, the manager finally raised his voice. "Let go of the box. Now, both of you." We froze. Karen yanked her hand away like she'd been burned. I let go more calmly, slowly pushing the box away from the edge of the table. The teens recording in the corner let out a low, dramatic "ooh," like we were in the final act of a reality show. The manager rubbed his temples. "This is insane. Ma'am, you need to leave, again, and if you don't, I'm calling the police." Karen gasped. "Me? I'm the victim here. He's the one who wouldn't share his food. He grabbed it out of my hands." Her husband chimed in. "This is discrimination. You've lost our business forever." The manager didn't blink. "That's fine, but you're leaving. Now." Karen looked like she might actually cry. Not because she was hurt, but because she wasn't getting her way. And then, just when I thought she was going to back off, she made one last move. She reached over, grabbed a napkin from the dispenser, and with the speed of someone who'd rehearsed it, snatched a slice of pizza right out of the open box. "If I can't have the whole thing, I'm taking this," she said triumphantly, like she'd just won a prize. She took a bite right there. No shame. Sauce on her chin, cheese stretching from her mouth to her hand. It was surreal. I stood up then, stunned silent. The room went dead quiet. The manager didn't say a word. Instead, he picked up the store phone behind the counter and calmly dialed. Karen didn't flinch. She finished chewing, threw the crust onto a nearby table, and crossed her arms defiantly. "What? You gonna arrest me over a slice of pizza?" The cops arrived less than 10 minutes later. 2 officers walked in, calm and professional, but clearly used to these types of scenes. The manager explained what happened. I gave a brief statement. The teens offered their video footage. Karen, meanwhile, tried to flip the script again. "This is harassment," she told the officers. "I'm a mother. I was just trying to feed my kids. That man over there, he provoked me." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, did you pay for the food you took?" She hesitated. "Well, no, but—" He cut her off. "Then it's theft. It doesn't matter how hungry you are. This is a business. You can't just take someone else's order." Her husband tried to intervene. "Come on, officer. This is ridiculous. We're talking about pizza." The officer nodded. Yes, and you're about to get cited for disorderly conduct and theft unless you leave the premises now. Karen stared at him like she was trying to will him into submission, but when she realized it wasn't working, she finally deflated. She turned and stormed out for the second time, this time with her husband trailing behind her, still muttering something about lawsuits and Yelp reviews. The door slammed behind them. The restaurant slowly came back to life. The manager walked over, apologized again, and handed me yet another pizza. This one, triple-checked and untouched. "On the house," he said, "and sorry you had to go through all that." I thanked him, still kind of dazed. I sat down, finally able to eat in peace. But the whole thing stuck with me. The entitlement, the shamelessness, the fact that someone would go to such extremes over a pizza that wasn't even theirs. I honestly thought that after everything, the yelling, the pizza snatching, the ridiculous tug-of-war, and the literal bite of theft, Karen would have disappeared into the night with her crusty pride and leave the pizza shop and everyone inside it in peace. But I should have known better, because people like her, they don't back down, they regroup. And when entitled people regroup, it usually means they're about to double down on the crazy. So yeah, just when things were starting to settle, pizza in my hand, the manager finally breathing like he wasn't about to have a heart attack, and the crowd disbanding, my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first, assuming it was just a notification. But then someone from the window booth let out a low, "No way," and pointed outside. I turned my head and felt my stomach twist into a knot of pure disbelief. Karen was outside again, but this time, she wasn't just yelling or demanding free cheese. She was pacing the sidewalk, phone to her ear, walking in tight little circles like she was narrating a crime scene. And then she did it. She actually did it. She called the police, on me. She wasn't even hiding it. Loud enough for half the street to hear, she said into the phone, "Yes, officer, I'm outside, redacted pizza place. A man inside assaulted me. I'm scared to go back in. He was aggressive. He took my food and threatened me." I nearly dropped the slice I was holding. I stared out the window like I was watching a bad soap opera unfold in real time. Her voice was trembling, but it wasn't fear. It was that shaky, fake performance that people put on when they're trying to cry but can't quite squeeze out a tear. And it wasn't just her anymore. There was another person beside her now, a younger woman, early 20s maybe, who looked like she was trying to film the whole thing. Great. Backup Karen had arrived. Inside, the atmosphere shifted again. The teens who were recording earlier perked up like they were about to get a part two. The manager peeked outside, groaned audibly, and said under his breath, "I'm seriously going to lose my mind." And me? I felt this weird mix of dread and surreal amusement. Like, was this real life? Was I about to be arrested over a pepperoni pizza and someone else's inability to respect basic social norms? Then came the sirens. Short, sharp, and far too close. The real kind. The ones that send a jolt of panic down your spine even when you haven't done a thing wrong. A police cruiser pulled up outside and two officers stepped out, both looking like they were already exhausted before their boots even hit the sidewalk. Karen ran up to them like they were her personal security team. She launched into this dramatic retelling, complete with wild hand gestures, pointing fingers, and so many exaggerated pauses that it felt like she was auditioning for community theater. From inside, all I could do was watch as she pointed through the window at me again and again. One of the officers held up a hand to calm her down, then both entered the shop. The room tensed instantly. You could hear a napkin drop. The manager stepped forward first, shaking his head slightly and explaining everything in one long, steady breath. The order number, the mix-up, the snatching, the dropping, the yelling, and the slice theft. One of the teens came over with their phone and asked, "Do you want the video?" The officer nodded, and that's when the whole vibe shifted. Because this wasn't just he said, she said anymore. This was recorded, time-stamped, and very, very real. The officer came over to me next, calm, measured. "Sir, can I speak with you for a moment?" I nodded, heart pounding harder than I wanted to admit. He asked me what happened, and I told him the full story, every ridiculous beat of it. And when I got to the part where she grabbed the pizza and ran, the officer raised an eyebrow. "And she ate it in front of you?" I nodded. She literally bit into it like it was some kind of prize she'd won. He blinked, scribbled something on his little notepad, then motioned for his partner. They talked briefly off to the side, glancing between Karen outside and the phone footage being played back by the teen like it was evidence in court. And then they stepped back outside. Everyone inside leaned slightly toward the windows without moving too obviously. It was like a live reality show none of us had signed up for, but couldn't stop watching. The officer spoke to Karen calmly, gesturing toward the shop, explaining something. She was shaking her head furiously, her mouth moving a mile a minute. Her hands were flying in the air again, clearly arguing. And then, pure gold. The younger officer pointed at the teen with the phone, mimed holding a screen, and said something that made Karen go pale, like visibly pale, because that's when she realized they had her. On video, mid-slice, mid-theft, mid-lie. Karen's whole demeanor changed. The faux tears dried up. The hand gestures stopped. She stood perfectly still, lips pressed tight like she was recalculating how to spin this before it spiraled into legal territory she couldn't control. The younger woman beside her, backup Karen, was still holding her phone, but slowly, awkwardly, slipped it back into her purse. And then came the final blow. The officer pulled out a little citation pad. Karen's mouth dropped open. "You're giving me a ticket? Me?" she shouted, loud enough for us all to hear. "He assaulted me," she added, pointing again. The officer calmly replied, "We've seen the footage. There was no assault. What we do see is you taking food you didn't pay for. That's theft. You're lucky we're not pressing further charges." And there it was. Justice. Delicious pepperoni-top justice. Karen stood there frozen, like someone had hit her pause button. She started to say something again, probably about her children, or her hard day, or some other excuse. But the officer held up a hand and said, "Ma'am, if you don't leave now, we will escort you." You could almost hear the record scratch inside her brain. She turned, snatched the citation from his hand like it had personally offended her, and marched back to her car with her backup Karen trailing behind like a dog that had just been scolded. They slammed the doors and peeled off, tires screeching unnecessarily loud, like they wanted to make a final statement, but failed even at that. Inside, the crowd actually clapped. No joke, like real genuine applause. One of the teens shouted, "Pizza justice!" and another echoed it like a battle cry. I slumped into my seat, finally able to breathe, the box still warm in front of me. The manager came over again, dropped a fresh drink and breadsticks on the table, and said, "That one's definitely on the house." I laughed, like really laughed, for the first time that evening. Because honestly, it was so absurd it had become funny. What started as a simple Friday night pizza run had turned into a showdown worthy of a courtroom drama. And yet, even as I took that first bite and let the garlic crust melt away the stress, I couldn't help but wonder, was that really the end? Because people like Karen, they don't just go away quietly. And if you think this was wild, just wait until you hear what happened next. It's funny how one moment you're just craving a quiet night out with a warm pizza, and the next, you've become the main character in a drama that half the restaurant is recording for TikTok. After Karen screeched away in her car, with a citation in her shaking hand and a trail of embarrassment behind her, the entire place slowly started to breathe again, like a collective exhale that we all desperately needed. But me? I just sat there for a moment, letting it all sink in. Not just the madness of the last hour, but the surreal realization that I had somehow survived a full-blown Karen attack and come out on the other side victorious. The manager returned once again, this time with a grin that said everything. "Man," he chuckled, dropping off another tray, this one stacked with extra breadsticks, a refill, and a lava cake. "You handled that better than I would have. She's a regular problem, but this time, we got her. We really got her." I raised an eyebrow. "Wait, she's done this before?" He nodded. "Different targets, same attitude. We've banned her twice. She always finds a way to weasel back in, claiming she's someone else's guest. But now that we've got footage and a police report, she's toast." And somehow, that felt more satisfying than any revenge plot ever could. As I started digging into the breadsticks, the teens from earlier approached. One of them, probably 17 at most, grinned from ear to ear. "Hey, I know this is weird, but you mind if I post the video? I got the whole thing, from her yelling to the cops showing up. It's gold, man. People need to see this kind of entitlement in action. I gave a small laugh, shrugged, and said, "Go ahead, just make sure you get my good angle." He burst out laughing and said, "You're a legend, bro." And honestly, that was the moment that made it all worth it. Not the free dessert, not even the taste of sweet, saucy victory, but the fact that for once, someone stood up to the nonsense and didn't let it slide. While I was wrapping up, a middle-aged couple from another table came over and said something that hit me harder than I expected. "Thank you. We've seen her do this before. Most people just walk away, too scared to confront her. But you stood your ground. That meant something." I nodded, humbled more than I expected to be. "It wasn't about the pizza anymore," I said. "It was about not letting people like her get away with that garbage." But the real cherry on top? About a week later, I get a call. The number was unfamiliar, but I answered anyway. Turns out it was someone from the precinct, one of the officers from that night. He told me they followed up on Karen after reviewing the footage and reports from previous incidents. Apparently, she had a long list of complaints from other places in town. Cafes, grocery stores, even a daycare where she tried to pick a fight over snack policies. But because of the clear video evidence and multiple witness statements from that night, they were finally able to pursue further legal action. "Your case opened a door," the officer said. "You did the right thing." And just like that, the situation that started with a hijacked slice of pizza turned into something bigger, something meaningful. Entitled behavior didn't win this time. It didn't get quietly brushed aside or dismissed with a fake apology. It got exposed, challenged, and dealt with. And I didn't even have to raise my voice to make it happen. I just had to stand firm. So yeah, I walked into that pizza shop thinking it'd be a quick bite and maybe a night of Netflix afterward. Instead, I walked out with a full stomach, a viral story, a newfound respect from strangers, and the sweet, unmatched satisfaction of knowing that justice really was served. And not just the legal kind. No, I'm talking bubbling cheese, crisp crust, extra pepperoni kind of justice. The kind that reminds you that sometimes standing your ground over something as simple as dinner can make a bigger impact than you ever imagined. And hey, if you loved this wild ride of pizza, petty drama, and one of the most iconic Karen meltdowns ever caught on camera, then don't just scroll past. Hit that subscribe button, because trust me, there's a whole buffet of unbelievable real stories coming your way. Stories where everyday people take on entitled nightmares, where justice wins, and where the underdog always gets the last slice. Like, comment, and join the community that stands up, speaks out, and never backs down from a fight, especially when pizza's on the line.